logistical, so unpredictable, here on SNL Stats.
Yes, that is right. Hello, everybody. SNL Stats is back for another episode, and this one is a really fun one. We get to talk with a former SNL cast member, and I cannot wait to introduce you to her and talk about her new film that is coming out this month. Joining me on this very special interview is the one, the only James Stevens. James, how are you?
Oh, Delta, Delta, Delta. I could not be any better. We have Edgar's wife, Beatrice. We have Dorothy Harris. I am so thrilled.
Yeah, well, so happy to have you on with us, James. Also joining us is one of our incredible super fans, Andrew Haynes. How you doing?
I am beyond thrilled. I was telling you before we got started, Siobhan, at the age that I am, 36, I kind of grew up with you. You know, you were in Seinfeld, and he said Men in Black at SNL, and just you've been in so. It's like you were always a little part of my life. I was so thrilled when we realized we could get you here, and I'm just so excited for this experience. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy that you guys are having me on. And I have to tell you, I love your song at the beginning. It's so
thank
good.
You. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, let me just formally introduce you, if you don't mind, to the audience. Sure. So joining us on this very special interview is the one, the only Siobhan Fallon Hogan. You may know her from season 17 of Saturday Night Live, a crazy season with lots of fun moments and a very big cast. Obviously, nowadays we know about large casts on SNL, so we can't wait to get into all of that with Siobhan. You may also know her from movies like Men in Black, Forrest Gump, Holes, shows like Law and Order, Billions, 30 Rock, and Seinfeld. So just an incredible list of projects that she has worked on. And she is the star and creator of the upcoming indie thriller, Rushed. Siobhan, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And I'm happy about you guys helping me promote my movie, Rushed. And I'm here to talk to you about whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, well, this is going to be really fun. I want to start with just hearing about this month of August, because your film is coming out at the end of the month. And I know I was talking with our mutual friend, Andy, before the show, and he told me that you have lots of stuff lined up. So how are you doing? Is it already getting crazy as you prepare for this launch of your movie?
It is so insane. My head is spinning because, the movie's coming out. Normally I'm just an actress that sits in my trailer and, you wait to go to the premiere and you hope you're not cut. But this has been like my baby for the past, we started filming 2 years ago, September. And Robert Patrick's in it from The Terminator, who I worked with on the really great movie Striptease years ago. I was the only non-stripper in the whole movie. No offense to myself. And Robert played my brother in that. Then Robert plays my husband in this. And then I wrote another film, which I'll tell you about in a little bit, but that's going to start shooting the end of September. And he's going to play he plays my brother in that one. He plays my husband in Rushed. So Robert Patrick and Jake Weary from Animal Kingdom. And yeah, so it's pretty crazy. We're doing all this PR and, it's nuts.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, no, I'm glad we have like an hour to like decompress and just hear how you're doing about everything. Yeah. Would you mind just giving the listeners the background? I mean, I could tell them, what I read about the movie, but it's better to hear it from somebody who, put the pen to paper. So tell the listeners what your new film is about.
So Rushed is about a mom from upstate New York who has 4 kids, an Irish Catholic mom. Let me see, where did I get that idea from? I have 3 kids. So it starts off, it's funny, one of the greatest things, interesting things to me is when terrible things happen to really funny people and how do they handle it. So she sends her kid off to college and she's kind of a helicopter mom who drives him absolutely out of his mind, constantly calling him. The kids on the way to the car to school in the morning are like, Mom, stop calling him. You're driving him crazy. I'm like, shut up. I'm calling him. He's my son. I don't care. Anyway, and there's a fraternity hazing incident. And without giving too much away, the mother doesn't like what happens in the fraternity hazing incident. And so she tries to do the right thing and take a route to take the high road. But when she comes up against a brick wall, she decides to go toe to toe with the frat boy. So it's a thriller and there's a huge twist. And you see how psycho a mother, such as myself, can be if someone wrongs her child. So it takes crazy twists and turns. It's like a roller coaster ride. And honestly, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I've been in this business a long time. So I literally knocked on every door of any person I've ever worked with and called in every favor. So I've done 3 Lars von Trier movies in Europe, and and so they're co-producing it with me. And if you know Lars von Trier's work, I just did The House That Jack Built with Matt Dillon, was out a year or two ago, and then I did Dogville with Nicole Kidman and Lauren Bacall, Ben Gazzara, and I did Dancer in the Dark that won the Palme d'Or with Bjork. And anyway, they read the script, and overnight they called me and they said, we want to co-produce this. So we're getting incredible pre-reviews, and it's kind of scary, except for I'm so excited. I'm like a child. I'm like in 5th grade. I can't sleep. Well, thank God this is a podcast.
This is so exciting, and I have to say, for those of you who are listening who have not checked out the trailer, Andrew and I were talking about this. You have scared us as the mother who's like just coming in to take care of business. I mean, you're scaring us.
It's crazy. Vertical Entertainment, who's distributing the film, they did an amazing job with that trailer. And, but it's not out of your mother's realm, or at least mine. My sister's always said to me, you have red hair, so you're a little crazier. Andrew, I thought maybe you were my child when I saw you there. So, I have got that Irish temper anyway. But then, it's like a bear cub who, a mama bear whose bear cub gets swiped at and stolen, and what do you do? So it's like, I guess apparently for me, sky's the limit.
Well, and I was going to ask you this because obviously, well, let me just say this real quickly too, that as a Catholic myself, and knowing my own mother, you left enough about the details of it to be, purposely vague, and because you've piqued my interest. I can't wait for Rush to come out. But how, other than obviously you are Irish Catholic, you have children of your own. What triggered for you like the idea behind the film? I guess in terms of just the incident, I guess, as you say.
Well, when you have kids and when they go off to college, you lose complete control. So when I was growing up, there was no cell phones. So if my parents didn't hear from me, and they heard from me on the payphone, on a Saturday afternoon after you stood in line, fine. Your imagination couldn't run that wild. When you have a cell phone and you're a helicopter mom or just a regular normal person, I wouldn't know what that's like. And you're like texting, and it's midnight. Okay, they didn't call. That's fine. They didn't text back. Just simply say you're okay, which is weird anyway. Why am I texting my kids? Or why do people text their kids? And they're not kids at that age. Why don't you let them go? But that's a whole other story. Your imagination starts to run wild as you're lying in bed. And so when your imagination runs wild, you could go to the farthest thought that is horrific. And then when that farthest thought comes true, what do you do? So I think every parent, especially if their kids are wild Irish rovers, like not anyone under my household, but just say they were, then you imagine the worst. And then you start going psycho when you can't sleep and think, oh yeah, well, if somebody does that, what am I going to do to them? Oh yeah, just try it. And you just start going cuckoo with lack of sleep. It's like when you first have a baby, you can't sleep, and then you get older. I remember my Aunt Mary, she had 7 kids, and she said to me, Siobhan, forget about sleep. You can't sleep when they're babies, can't sleep when they're older, and then you get old and you can't sleep anyway. So you might as well just forget about sleep. Which, by the way, that's a good thing for Saturday Night Live, because you never slept on Saturday Night Live because people are just nocturnal. And I was never nocturnal. I remember thinking, what are these people doing? They're starting to write at midnight. I'm like, I go to bed then. But anyway, yeah, so that's what it's about.
We've heard that they do a lot of sitting around for a really long time. Everybody gets to work very early, and then they sit around for a very long time before they start to do anything.
It's insane. People would start writing, I'm serious, like midnight. It's a completely nocturnal culture, which I now really understand too, because my husband, it's so weird. I married my husband so nocturnal, and so is my son. I'm like, this is so bizarre. I'm an early bird. And they say that early birds always kind of are prejudiced against nocturnal people because you think they're lazy, but actually they get a lot of work done at night.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
A learning experience for me.
You should actually find out before you marry someone if they are nocturnal or not, because it really is kind of rough.
This is good advice. This is good advice.
Exactly.
let me say this. So, we're talking about, your family and your kids a lot. So I know that screenwriters have to deal with actors and directors wanting to change lines they've written all the time. So
Right.
with your children having roles in this film, is that something you now have to deal with from them? And do you ever agree with their notes?
Listen, thank God for my kids, because I'm a dinosaur. So I had stuff in there that was so ridiculous. Like, this could be an exaggeration, like, hey, you want to go smoke a boner? And they'd be like, what? Mom, that is not what anyone in college would say right now. So they helped me so much with that. In addition, when you see the movie, that frat house is my house. That house, when Jake Weary's up in the balcony and the pledges and they're down and they're pinning the pledges, that's my house. So my son and my daughter came home from college. My other daughter, she's actually a writer for the New York Post. She's a journalist. She was too above it. Actually, she got cut.
Oh, that's great.
That was good though, because she was getting too successful anyway. So she needed to be brought down a peg. So, but the other two came home, and I had decorated what I thought a fraternity would look like. They were like, "Oh my God, just please leave." So they got all their friends over, their college kids. So didn't you think it looked really authentic, like completely like a frat house?
100%. Yeah. For sure.
And then, like the furniture on the big mansion with the pillars, that old furniture and stuff. I mean, people were like, "This looks just like a college frat." I'm like, "Well, my kids did it." And then like the extras in it, who were like the very fancy extras at the cocktail party. That was one of my fancy friends' houses. And Andy Davis, who directed me in Holes, and he directed The Fugitive. He's like my favorite director of all time. He said to me, "Siobhan, where did you get the extras?" I said, "Oh, the college kids." I said, "Those are my kids' friends." And he said, "But where'd you get the fancy, wealthy people?" I go, "Hey, listen, I hobnob with the hoi polloi. Those are my friends." I go, I walk with all types of people. I swing low and I swing high. So yeah, it's crazy. Like, they were really good, weren't they? The extras are unbelievable in it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it looks incredible. Honestly, were you concerned about damages at all to your house, like when you were using it?
I cared less. I was so when I found out we had insurance and I could get my living room painted, I was like, excellent. I get the living room painted. But another when you say concerned at all, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit.
Go for it.
Okay, so we filmed the movie. We then the directors from because Lars von Trier's company Zentropa suggested this great director, Vivica Musaya, who directed it. She did an unbelievable job. And we filmed down in New Jersey. And the last 2 days we went to upstate where I grew up to get the foliage and to get all the outdoor scenes of the exteriors of the college and all that. That's Syracuse University. So we're in Binghamton, New York. We have 2 days left of filming. I have a carload of people. So when you see all those scenes in the minivan, I'm in that freaking minivan with the sound person, the cameraman, the director, and doing those scenes. In between, I'm making them play things like, "I see something," and what's the first movie ever? Matter of fact, I was just telling my daughter tonight, what the sound girl goes, I go, "Guys, let's go around the minivan and say what our first movie we ever saw was." "Okay, I'll go first. Herbie the Love Bug Goes to Monte Carlo." And this girl goes, "My first movie was with my grandmother in San Francisco. I was 7 years old. It was The Exorcist." I was like, "Oh my God, no wonder you're a sound person. That is the weirdest thing I ever heard." Anyway, what's my point? Oh, we're in Binghamton. And Vivica, the Danish director, said, "I can't believe we have an A-list film and we don't have an A-list editor." And I never even thought about post-production. I was like, what do we need an editor for? Film the movie. So I was like, wait a minute. I've been in this business for 5,000 years. I have to know an A-list editor. And so I said, wait, I did this movie with Johnny Depp 2 years ago called The Professor. My friend Wayne directed it. Sabine Emiliani is this fabulous French director, and she thought I was funny. And she'd call me up and she'd go, "I saw you fell into the bushes. It was so funny. I'm editing there. Someday we have to meet." So I called her up, and I called her from Binghamton. I don't even know what time it is in France. I was like, "Sabine?" She's like, "Hello." I said, "I wrote this movie. We don't have an editor. Would you want to edit?" She's like, "Siobhan, look, when do you want me to edit it?" I go, "I don't know. Vivica, when do we edit this?" She's like, "As soon as possible. 3 days after tomorrow." I go, "I guess 4 days." She said, "I have a movie I'm doing." But long and the short of it is, I woke up the next morning to a phone call. "Siobhan, I will put off my movie." And she edited that film. And
Wow.
she did a fabulous job. I mean, she took what you saw, well, what you will see in Rush. Many of this was a lineage story. And then remember the movie Crash? And then those cutting back. So that's what keeps you on the edge of your seat. I guess it's the modern way of telling stories that I'm not a part of. I'm not privy to. So, so she really killed it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Honestly, when you were talking about, the moment in your life with your kids going off to college and like what you're feeling now as you created it, I just it brought me back to, the first time I would be going out, clubbing or whatever it was. And then my parents would say to me, okay, like just text us and let us know that you're home. Cause I would come home after they were asleep. And I remember saying to myself, Siobhan, I was like, okay, what do they know? Like, I'm just going to go into their room and I'm just going to say, Mom, I'm home, and yell and then they're going to be so scared that I woke them up in the middle of the night that they're going to leave me alone. And well, I was gonna say, I know that I can totally understand. I'm not a parent myself yet, but I can totally understand seeing from my parents, just how concerning it is when your kids grow up and start going off into this crazy world.
So bad. And I say to my kids, I can't wait till you have kids. I hope they're horrible. Like my son used to jump out the window. You needed all the tricks, like put the pillow, like the fake body, all the lies. My daughter's lies. It's so, my one daughter just went to the one that just helped me with the computer. She went into New York City with her friends the other night. I got an Uber home, cost like, I don't know, $190 or something. I'm like, what the hell? And it's not my money though. I make them work. So then the one kid for I don't even, it just goes on and on. They tell the wrong address. They run up in the wrong town. I'm like, you don't know where you live? Anyway, it's a scene and a half.
No, I am fascinated by all of this, the post-production stuff, all this. So you mentioned something about, you typically would be in the trailer, ready for, to shoot the scene. So what was it like when you're filming on location? Are the level of stress? I mean, well, I have to imagine, you're just, this has to be killer. How are we going to make it? How are we going to make it good? Right.
I'll tell you one thing. It's one way to go on a diet, because the second I finished, I think I gained 20 pounds, and now I'm doing another film. So you go down again. But this is the deal. It is full on because you're producing. So you have my phone, which my character had a phone anyway, and they would yell cut. I'd be like, Jake Weary's flying in. Make sure someone picks him up. Make sure he has, some chocolate and a bottle of wine. Blah, blah, blah. And the director would be like, Siobhan, put the phone down. Stop producing. You're an actress. I'd be like, shut the hell up. I have to do this. So it was just constant. But the one thing that I learned is I wouldn't say I sugarcoated things, but I never, sometimes with some people, was not completely straight on what I thought. There's no time for a moment of faking anything. So if, for example, someone's a jerk on set, you're like, excuse me, come here. Don't be a jerk. You can't be a jerk because we got to move on. You understand what I'm talking about? Okay, if you want to keep talking, you're fired. Do you get it? Like, I'm telling you, I was like, cut to the chase, and it worked great. But I treated people the way I want to be treated on a set. And I learned the European way from working 3 films with Lars, that I don't believe in above the line or below the line. I believe it's like a play. I believe the crew equals the actors actors equal the crew. I don't care if you're the prop guy or the guy that cleans the trailers. Everybody's got the same end goal. So then everybody had a fabulous time.
And I would imagine, now this is just so cool to hear. I would imagine that everybody in all those departments that you mentioned said to you at some point, I want to work with you again. Let
me tell you something. I'm doing another film. 90% of them are coming back. And I'm not paying them big because I don't have the budget. This next budget, because of COVID, is going to be, first of all, we did this movie. Well, I'm not supposed to tell on hardly anything. I have friends and dedicated, loyal people that will do anything because I treat them right. And I treat them like family. And so they're all coming back, and we can't wait.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, I am actually very interested in the production as well. And so I'm very curious. You've talked about one of the benefits, apparently, that I hadn't thought of with getting your living room repainted. So what are the, how do the challenges, what are the pros and cons versus having an entire, film production crew on site in your home?
Okay. First of all, the town I live in, Rumson, New Jersey, the people were unbelievable. And I mean, so I put a Facebook message out. I said, hey, I'm going to be doing a movie. Would anybody want to rent rooms to crew? Cut to, I have like 3 crew members living in friends' houses for free. I have people all over town living for free. Like, who would do that? You know what I mean? I have 3, like, basically crew is like, gypsies. So, and they're the greatest guys, but they might not appear like people that live in Rumson, New Jersey. And so, anyway, so then like food. So we had a catering truck and all that. But at night, there became a list that we had to say, sorry, you can't bring food tonight, just so they could stop by. My house was a shit show. It was like, first of all the windows were blacked out. My driveway had, I'm not exaggerating, 4 huge trucks at all times and 6 porta potties. My husband herniated 2 distance back because he'd be moving the porta potties around at night.
Oh my God.
It was crazy. Then the in the movie you see there's a scene like when the guy's like picking up a girl. That's one of my kids' rooms. So and yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to ask you, because you mentioned that you had filmed this movie 2 years ago, and obviously we all know about, how crazy the world has been with COVID over the last couple of years. How did that affect the production of the film?
Well, so we finished and editing in France. I went to France to do the editing March 1st last year.
Wow.
March 13th, I was supposed to fly to Denmark because Christian Eidnes Andersen, that's who does all Lars's composing, he was doing the music. So, of course, I go to the airport, my plane's canceled because of COVID. So, because of modern technology, I was able to do everything. We did all the looping from cell phones in my house. I cut together that whole last scene, the courtroom, with music. I'd cut it here at minute. So they would send it to me. They'd send me segments, 20 minutes. How do you like this? Back and forth like that. So the sound edit was completely affected, but it worked amazingly well because of modern technology and because Christian's a great guy. Then we finish completely May 30th. Well, then we were going to submit to Cannes Film Festival and all that. Well, all that goes pretty much by the wayside because it was all going to be online. And we were advised, don't do that because who wants to see a film online? But then the worst part for me that I never imagined was then we had to get an agent, and we ended up getting one of the top agencies, United Talent, was the sale, because I was literally in the fetal position for the whole month of October because I couldn't take it. I was like, this is really interesting too. One really stupid thing I did was I got home from France and I thought the movie was so good. This is how stupid I was. I didn't think, I'll wait to show the investors till the sound is in it, right? So, because I thought it was so good. There was temp music in it, but it wasn't. Well, anyway, so I had a little party and and it was COVID. No, it was just the start of COVID. And they saw it and they loved it. So I tell this story, and my sister came, and my sister said to me afterwards in the bathroom, oh my God, Siobhan, I was so nervous. I thought, if this is bad, I can't take it. You owe so many people so much money you borrowed from all your friends. What if it's bad? So I go out and I say, hey, everybody, I'll tell you the funniest story. And I repeat exactly that. My sister just said, and this investor says, that's exactly what I thought. So here's the thing. It never entered my mind that it wouldn't be good. I don't know why. And it never entered my mind that it was odd to ask people to invest and to take such big dollars from people. So it didn't cross my mind until October, till the sale, that I was like, holy crap, I owe a lot of people money. This better be good, But then the only thing that happened was, to our luck, was that the vertical said, let's hold this till, COVID ends, people go back to theater. the theaters. And now it's coming out August 27th, which is perfect timing for colleges.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I did also want to ask you, Siobhan, when I was watching the trailer, which, by the way, if one of your listeners and you haven't checked out the trailer, go check it out. It's on YouTube. It's a 2-minute trailer, and it's really just brilliant, showing a lot of amazing scenes from the film. I do notice that once you get to the point of you're going to start taking revenge, and obviously there is a little bit of build up towards you going to see some of these fraternity guys that may have harmed your son. I was thinking to myself, like, did you ever think I can only go so far with this because there is an age discrepancy here? Like some of these people are kids, or because they're like college students and a little bit older, I don't know if you had to be careful with like the violence from an adult to a younger generation, or it didn't matter because of what they did.
Here's the thing. I really, maybe I'm kind of immature. My father was really funny, and I guess I'm not saying I'm really funny, but I'm saying just like my father was. And my father never seemed like any different age as he got older. When he was 80, I thought he still seemed young because he had a young spirit. So I respect people in college, and I respect people 20 years older than me. And I feel people should be treated the same way. So no, I never crossed my mind like, oh, well, I better be careful because they're in college. I just thought, this is what I would do. This is just the truth of the core of what would happen if this happened to this mother.
For sure.
So you know what I mean? And the other problem is, and I'm just thinking of this as I'm talking now, but the whole thing now is, it's funny because my generation, our parents were really strict, and I adored my parents, and I oh my gosh, I was scared to death of, making mistakes, not making mistakes, but I knew I'd be dead in the water if I did a lot of the things that my kids did. But I respect them like crazy. Now we make the mistake of being friends with our kids. And like, everybody can come on over, have, beers at my house, whatever. But, and then if you dare say, hey kid, knock it off, they're like, Mom, I can't believe you said that. So I don't care. I go, I don't care what they think of me. And the kids don't care if you say anything, you know what I mean? But so in other words, no, it didn't bother me at all that I cross the line with young people.
Well, yeah, this seems like a perfect segue into something that I was interested in. I know that this is not the first time you've had your kids on set while filming. So, you've said you used to frequently bring them to set, and they would often be getting into shenanigans, as you put it. So tell us about a time when they really caused a stir and you had to go into full mom mode during a shoot.
Well, a few times now that you're saying that. When I did Baby Mama with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, my son actually was cut from it. He was 9 years old. Remember I had the speech impediment, I had to walk like this? Well, he did too. He never should have cut it. He's in the outtakes if you're watching. He came and he said, Mother, may I please have some breast milk? Well, anyway, of course, he has and had a ton of personality. So the director's like, sit next to me, Pete. And the sound guy's like, and the sound guy kept saying, what is that sound? And they were giving Peter popcorn, and he was like throwing it up and eating it and then crunching on it. So they finally figured out it was Peter. But another time in Charlotte's Web, we were over in Australia, and I thought I was such a good mother. I'm like, I was in the trailer getting my makeup on. My kids were really little. They were like 7 and 5, and the 3-year-old was too young to do it. It was like the carnival scene. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm getting my makeup on, geez, aren't I something? I can just do it all. I can get my kids to be in a movie with me. Wow, am I? And then they're like, Siobhan, could you please come to the set?
Oh, the hubris.
And the director, poor Gary, he's still gone now. But he said, Siobhan, I've already shot a couple things. They're ruining the shot. They're fighting. I said, guys, what is the problem? And they're really little. My son was like in little like farmer jeans, and Bernadette had like a page boy haircut. She looked like Scout from To Kill a Mockingbird. And they're like, Mom, why can't we have cotton candy? Well, it was sprayed, it was prop cotton candy. So I said, okay, guys, here's the deal. If you stop fighting, like slugging each other, you can have cotton candy. Well, cut to, there's an aerial shot in Charlotte's Web, if you ever see it. And my kids are full on swinging at each other because, but anyway, so listen, it doesn't always pay to be a goody-goody and bring your kids to set. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, for sure. James, did you have anything else on Rush?
Yeah, I was just going to say last thing, and of course we'll maybe follow up at the very end. But it's interesting to hear because of COVID times the ultimate patience that you had, you and the entire team had to put into here at the end for the release. So when it's all said and done, from kind of two questions here, but from the very beginning to August 27th, what is that length of time from the start of just?
It would be 2 years. Well, no, well, the filming was 2 years to September 27th, but I wrote it, I don't know, maybe 2 years before that, so probably 4 years.
Right.
I didn't write it 2 years before. I finished half of it, and then my daughter encouraged me to finish it, and then I actually went, my college, Lemoyne College, this little tiny college up in Syracuse. They honored me at a Central Park big gala. But the hilarious part was they weren't just honoring me. They were honoring another actor, Jon Michael Thompson, who was on Broadway. So I was kind of like sloppy seconds. So of course I just mocked myself, actually. And I found out that night that this Irish family had donated $7 million to Lemoyne. And my mother was just passed away at 96, but she was like 93 at the time. And she said to me, "Oh, Siobhan, I'm so glad that those McNeils gave $7 million, because the Irish, I don't know what happened to us." Because my family all went to Lemoyne too. The Irish really have not done well compared to the Italians. I mean, they named that library after Falcone's, and the Italians, I think it's because they don't drink as much. I don't know. So anyway, so I got up there and I literally mocked myself. And then I said that about the McNeils. I said, "Listen, my mother's up in bed in Syracuse, New York. She's so happy that you gave money because she was really worried about the Irish." Well, because of that, this family who donated so much money, they were so nice to me. They thought it was so funny, the speech. So I then emailed them 2 days later and I said, "Listen, my kids would call this really greasy, but I wrote a movie. Would you ever want to invest?" And they said, "Send it." And so I sent it. And then 2 days later, they called and they said, "We're both in for 100,000. That's how it all started.
Wow.
So then I was able to go to my other friends and say, "Hey, listen, I got these two high rollers from Syracuse. What are you New Jersey people worth?" And literally it was like boom, 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 collect money. So it was really crazy and lucky, but just sort of naive and blindly just, doing something that I never knew I could do.
Well, and for those of you out there that have the next best screenplay, be taking notes, because this, you never know, right? But so with all that time spent, though, here's the last thing on this. What are you going to be like on August 27th? Like,
okay, listen, I'm probably going to look like. Remember when Jimmy? Well, you don't remember because you're so young. When Jimmy Carter went in the White House, you could see him age by the day.
Well, wait, Siobhan, we remember when Dan Aykroyd played Jimmy Carter.
Yes, exactly.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I go to bed at night and I'm like, "Okay, good night." I'll maybe sleep for 20 minutes. And I'm like, "Dink." I'm like, okay. And my head, and I'll be like, "Okay, don't pick up the phone. Don't," because I'll be like, "Oh, I forgot to text this. I forgot to tell so-and-so about the movie. I forgot to text how many hits we have on YouTube. I'm such a loser." I'm like, 105,222. Well, it was only 105,176 when I went to bed. And then I look at Instagram. I'm like a loser. So I am going to be, I have to actually try to like control myself. See, like right now, I'm like, I can't stop talking. Like I was thinking all the things I'm going to say to thank the investors and thank the people, but then the movie has to start too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I just have so many people I'm so grateful to.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's all going to come together. It sounds really incredible, everything that you've done so far. We do want to ask you some questions like about your life and about SNL a little bit too.
Sure.
Okay. So I guess this is a good segue, but obviously when it comes to SNL stuff, a lot of people do know you from the Delta stuff that James referenced at the beginning of the podcast. And it's so funny to me because I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, we're interviewing Siobhan and she has a movie about a fraternity, but her SNL sketch that she's most known for is a sorority. So is that just like a really crazy coincidence, or did somewhere like inspire you?
And I was never in a sorority. I was never in anything. But now that you're saying this, I remember when I was on SNL and we used to get letters from the Delta girls that were hilarious. Like, "Hey, please, is there any way you could go after the, I don't know the names of the names, like the DJs. I mean, those girls are sleazier than us. Please, it's become really hard on campus. So it was so funny. And then it was always so fun, to do the sketch with the different, the hostesses and hosts that came in. But no, it was hysterical. And we had like David Spade and Chris Farley, being like frat boys. And the thing is, it's so funny because at the time I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so old. I think I was 28 and I was like, I'm so old. And you look back and you look like a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So Delta 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 has nothing to do with Rushed, just to be clear.
Nothing. Isn't it funny? I know. Matter of fact, so I went to Lemoyne College and we used to go down to Syracuse University to try to meet the cute boys and go to the frat parties. And I would come home and I'd be like so sort of down and out because I was like, no one even gave me a turn because it was all sort of based on looks. And, I was kind of happening at Lemoyne College because there was about 400 kids in my class. And so you'd go over to Syracuse University and the girls were like really pretty. And I'd be like, oh my God, I don't want to go to those frat parties anymore because they're judging way too much on looks. And I have a winning personality, but they don't get it over there because the music's too loud at the frat parties to get my jokes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is so funny. So, this has come up a lot already, your history at Lemoyne. And I did want to ask you about that since the movie obviously centers, around college and tradition. So you are a third generation Lemoyne Dolphin.
Yes, I am.
Following in the family footsteps.
Well, yeah, but wait, my grandfather also helped found the college at Egan.
Oh, wow.
So yes. Uh-huh.
Amazing. So I had no idea. So this is great stuff. I did hear that they have a really great tradition there where established students help the incoming freshmen carry their things into the dorms on move-in weekend. This just seems like such a beautiful, welcoming act of service to me. Can you talk about some of the college traditions you participated in and how your time at Lemoyne shaped you?
Okay, wait. I was on the orientation committee. Now, I am probably one of the weakest, most non-athletic people you've ever met. So there was a girl, Kathy Murphy. I was assigned to her. She showed up from Long Island. She's still a really good friend of my sister, Sheila, smoking cigarettes. She was in the backseat of her parents' car, smoking Pall Malls in a pink Cadillac, and it was packed with clothes and things. Now, in those days, I remember going to college with one suitcase and like a Holly Hobby poster. I was so queer. So she pulled up. She was from Long Island, so that was a little different. So she was smoking cigarettes, but I couldn't take the heat. So I remember I hid in the bathroom because I was like, she has way too many things to carry. I can't do all this. But I was in Project Inner City. I helped the younger kids. But here's the other thing. You see, being Irish Catholic, I really believe, partly out of guilt, partly because I believe it, and partly because I'm afraid I'm going to get struck down, that what goes around comes around. So I always, throughout my life, volunteered because I figured, like I went to LA and I volunteered at the teen canteen, and that's for runaways. And they would come in like from all night long with hickeys all over the necks, and they thought they would come from like all over the country, and they thought they're going to be movie stars. And but we learned that, at Lemoyne, you help others and then you get helped. So I did do a lot of that at Lemoyne.
That's awesome.
I did hide in the bathroom a lot though because I'm weak.
But it does seem, Siobhan, that attitude that you have where you're like, I'll help others and they're going to help me. Like that's exactly what you put into your film. So it's like, this is something that it clearly carried throughout your life.
Totally. I mean, tiny example. Say in the movie, I'm lying in the bed and they're like resetting, and I reset my rosary beads. I reset the Bible glass. No, Siobhan, we'll do that. That's, that's ridiculous. I will, if I can help out, you help out. That's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been on big budget movies where they come running up to you and they put an umbrella over your head. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so hideous. Please do not put an umbrella over my head. I can put an umbrella over my own ugly, gigantic, fat red head. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it gets to the point of ridiculous.
Yeah, and there's just like so many projects. Like obviously we knew we were having you on, so naturally we're going to go into like the IMDb and take a look at all the projects you've done and stuff like that. And I'm sure you've been asked about different shows and movies you participated in. But is there one in particular, like somebody else's project that you're like, oh, I love to tell certain stories about working on this particular show because like between Golden Girls and then Seinfeld, like there's 30 Rock, there's just like so many classics that you've been a part of.
It's funny. I mean, people ask me that all the time, and so many different movies I liked for different reasons. Like I loved New in Town with Harry Connick Jr. and Renee Zellweger because Harry Connick Jr. is literally one of the funniest people you've ever met in your life. We would get to the point where I'd have to have my makeup redone. I'd be laughing so hard. And when Hurricane Sandy hit, we used to have a house out in Breezy Point, New York. That's a lot of cops and firemen, and that was hit really hard by 9/11, and then they got hit again with Sandy. And Harry, is from New Orleans, and so he knew what it was like, when the flood's there. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, these people got hit bad in Breezy Point. Would you maybe, I don't know, sign some posters? Siobhan, I'll do you one better. I'll come down and do a concert for them." He came to Breezy Point and did a concert for the people and all the volunteers for me in this pavilion. And I got up and I said, "Guys, I just want to introduce," I said, "Listen, I am a 2-bit actress. Harry Connick Jr. is a major star, and he came here for you guys." And he got up and he said, guys, let's get one thing straight. Siobhan is not a 2-bit actress. She's worth at least 75 cents. But anyway, no, I love that one because they were the best. And I love, but there's so many, like the Lars von Trier movies, working with Lauren Bacall. She and I became great friends. I remember one time we went out to dinner and she said, "Siobhan, did you ever think that you and I would be friends?" And I was like, "No." And she said, "Either did I. When I saw you in first class on that airplane with those little hooligans with the baby crawling around through those Cheez-Its." Anyway, we have so many different reasons to be thankful for so many different, I'll never forget when I was in Men in Black and Vincent D'Onofrio was the big star. And my daughter, Berna, that was a baby. And if he let me do my side first, I could catch the red eye home. And Barry Sonnenfeld was like, "Vincent, Siobhan has a baby and she's getting a little homesick." So there was a lot of terrible, terrible rain. They had to keep putting off our scene because they couldn't get this truck up this hill. And he's like, "Would you mind if Siobhan went first?" And poor Vincent had like his eyeballs like open and they were drying out. They had to give him drops. He's like, "How old's your baby?" And I was like, "She's like 6 months." He's like, "All right, go ahead." So nice to do that.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned Men in Black because I mean, as Andrew said, like we all feel like we've grown up with you, and my siblings who no doubt are listening to this at some point will always talk about Beatrice and Sugar Water. So.
I wasn't supposed to be that part. I was supposed to be the part of the girl giving birth to the alien, and I went in and I had to go to the some fancy hotel, the Park something hotel in New York City, and there was a big snowstorm. So I got a babysitter, and I went over, and Barry Sonnenfeld called down and said, "Siobhan, I'm sleeping. I'm from California. You're too early. You're supposed to be here at 3:00." And I was like, "Uh-oh, Barry, I don't have a babysitter. Bring the baby." I go back home. Now a complete snowstorm hits. I go back with the baby in the front pack, and I go, and I'm in boots. I walk across the park. And he's like, "Siobhan, you've been here twice. Thanks for it." And he goes, all right, so you give birth to an alien. Obviously, you can give birth to a baby. But no, I'm not here for that part. I know you brought me in for that part, but I'm not doing that part. And I said, I want to be the farmer's wife because there was a girl from upstate. There used to be a commercial, and she'd go, "Hi, I'm Debbie from Jerry's Carpets, 60609." So I did that. Same with Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump, I was supposed to be this tiny part, and I said to Bob Zemeckis, no. Listen, I want to be the bus driver. I took the bus my whole life. I know bus culture. I know bus drivers, young and old. Let me read for the bus driver. So I would always do that. And
that is hilarious. No, that's hilarious because I was going to go to Forrest Gump next because it's like Dorothy Harris. It's like that the final scene is legendary.
Well, that was, first of all, that movie's so near and dear to me because Bob Zemeckis' wife, Mary Ellen, became one of my best friends on the very first movie I ever did, Greedy, with Kirk Douglas. Phil Hartman played my husband. And Mary Ellen, I didn't know what the hell I was doing on movies. Completely different. I came from stage. I did TV. Movies, you're supposed to be tiny, right? The director had no idea that I'd never been in a movie. When he found out, he hated me. He's like, "Sean, could you please do that again?" And Mary Ellen would think it was so funny. Anyway, we became best friends. So she then said to her husband, "You have to read this girl for this other part." Well, that's when I went in and I said, listen, I'm not reading that part. and I did an imitation Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen's passed from cancer, but her son's still a very good friend. I met her son when he was 7 years old. Now he's in his 30s. He's like incredible. He runs a rehab out in where I might have to go after, but it's all men, after the opening on August 27th. I'm only kidding. But but no, Forrest Gump. No, that was funny too. On the bus in Forrest Gump. So I had to go down early to South Carolina for bus training. So I told you I'm really weak. So I go down there to Beaufort, South Carolina, and they're like, Siobhan, you're gonna come down. There was so much, there's big budget movies. You're gonna come down. You're gonna do some bus training. There's a 1949 bus. You're gonna get picked up by a guy named Clem, and Clem's gonna drive you over to the bus terminal. You're gonna get a bus. So I'm like, okay. So I get this guy, and the guy's like, I swear to God, has a 12-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon. He's like, all right, go ahead. All right. Now this bus doesn't have power steering, honey. So you're gonna take the bus. He's drinking. Well, the poor thing is drinking it away. I have to turn the wheel so hard I could barely turn it. My arms would ache, and every day I had to go drive the stupid bus. Okay, now comes time to shoot the scene, and they're going to pull the bus with a rope. I don't have to drive it. So all I have to do is they go, Siobhan, just step on the brake when we all cut. Now the bus is loaded with like the producer's kids, the actors' kids, and they're in flannel shirts, and it's sweltering. And there's no heat, there's no air conditioning because it's 1949. And they're like, action. And they're like, I remember all I have to do is brake. So they're like, shh. And I'm like, all right, Keith. And I'm like improvising. They're like, cut. And I'm like, and they're like, cut. Because if I don't cut, it's gonna like basically careen off. So I slam on the brakes, and the kids are like, ow, wait, hit my head. So I was like, shh, don't tell anybody. But anyway, yeah, it was a riot. Forrest Gump. I was there for like 2 or 3 weeks because they kept not getting to my second scene when I had to have my skin aged. So I was second unit. So I was, in those days, I was like being paid by the day. So I was like, this is great.
Yeah, sure.
This is hilarious. And I have to ask, while we're at this juncture, for all my North Carolina brethren, if you have anything negative to say about South Carolina, please do so now. It's a joke. Please don't. I'm kidding.
My husband is a huge New Yorker. His family owned the White Horse Tavern, and he has the weirdest thing. 2 brothers and 3 sisters who live in Savannah with the thickest New York accents you ever heard.
Funny, very funny,
Yeah.
very funny. So yeah, this is, I'm loving all these stories, about being involved in the, on the set and stuff. And something that I read somewhere was that when filming the 30 Rock episode, The Fightin' Irish,
Yeah.
you were still recovering from pneumonia, I think.
Pneumonia.
Yeah.
So I had like a gurgly throat, so I sounded like an alcoholic, which was perfect for the part.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was going to ask, are there any other characters that you've played that manifested as they did due to something, some ongoing challenge or event in your life at that time?
Let me think about that. You see, I had a lucky break, which was I was pegged for being comedic only, because of SNL, because of everything I had done and commercially, So Avi Kaufman, who's a very well-known casting director, and she casts many movies, many TV shows. She did me a favor and cast my movie Rushed. She's also casting my next movie. She brought me in for the first Lars von Trier movie to play the prison guard, which is a very serious role in the movie that Bjork, that they won the Palme d'Or. Now, no one would bring me in for a serious role like that at the time. My daughter Bernadette was about, maybe 3 or 4 at the time. She'd been up all night with an ear infection, and then I had to go to the audition, and I was supposed to cry in the audition, and I was like, oh my God, you'd always panic. Am I going to cry? Am I going to cry? Well, I was so exhausted from staying up all night with the baby that I was able to sob immediately. Wow. But wait, I have a really great SNL story that I know you guys will love. Do you want me to just tell you it?
Oh, yes.
100%. Do it.
Okay. So I met my husband right when I moved back from New York, from LA. I was only lived there for 2 years. I didn't fit in at all. To New York City. We lived a block apart. And my father used to tell me to hide my real personality for at least 3 weeks when I met a guy, because he said, you're a little too much. So I pretended I was shy, and I pretended that I didn't get things. And I'd be like, what? Like girls do to get guys. They'd be like, I don't get it. Or like, I don't know. Like if they said like, well, what do you want to order? I don't know. What do you want? because that's what apparently guys like that better. So instead of, I know what you got, I'll get it. So anyway, so we started going on. I was like madly in love. And my husband was a tough New Yorker and he played New York rugby. So you were allowed to bring as many people to your dressing room as you wanted, which my husband took total advantage of and would bring like the entire New York rugby team to my dressing room. So this one particular week, Bruce Springsteen was going to be singing, and Tom Hanks was the host. And you got 2 tickets that were on the floor, and then you could have as many people you wanted to the dressing room. Now, Ellen Cleghorn, who was my roommate, she was so nice because it was so annoying that these guys would all be in the room and the sink would be piled full of beer. And I was like, excuse me, may I get by? I need to change into my costume. And they'd be like, yes, yes, go ahead, sweetheart. No problem, sweetheart. So, okay. So now this one week, we couldn't have any guests because there was Bruce Springsteen was going to be there and they didn't want to be on the floor because you could also go down and listen like to the musical guests. You could bring, but a memo went out that said, listen, no guests on the floor when Bruce Springsteen is here for his music. Everyone, any guests that you have in the dressing room, they stay in the dressing room. Only your 2 designated people that are on the floor. So my parents, my father who looked, they used to call him Tip O'Neill, he was like a big Irishman, and my mother, they're about in like the 5th row. So this has clearly gone out. I am new. It's probably like October. I have no business at all doing anything out of the ordinary except for being respectful. My husband is from Rumson, New Jersey, where Bruce Springsteen lives. He's obsessed with Bruce Springsteen. And he's I said, you can bring one other person. He brings his brother, Vinny the Irish Guinea. That's what they called him. So and you can see it, but there's monitors in each room. So there's a TV monitor and Bruce Springsteen strum. And he goes, my brother-in-law and my husband get like crazy eyes and look at each other and they completely disregard me like I'm not even there. And they take off like 2 bats out of hell and run. And I run after them and I have high heels on. I'm like, no, and I can't make noise because, you know, the thing is on like, you can't make, I'm like, Peter. And I go down the stairs, chasing, down, Peter, Vinny, Peter. And I see them go on the floor and there's Lorne Michaels standing there. And I'm like, after them, like those 2 arrive and me. And he's like looking at us like, clearly you're new and you should be following the rules. And clearly you got the memo. So what in God's name are you doing on the floor? And then Bruce goes, down to Lucky Town, I'm going down. And my husband and Vinny rush the stage.
No way.
Swear to God. And the whole audience follows like a crazy rock concert. And you can see when you watch the show, my father fist pumping like he's like in college. And literally it makes the show. And of course, Lorne loved it. And everybody loved it because everybody loves anything out of the ordinary. But it was a little bit crossing the line.
Wow. That's incredible. That's an amazing story, Siobhan. Yes, that's incredible. I'm going to have to go rewatch that. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I have so many SNL questions, and I want to make sure that all 3 of us can get to them. I just want to ask you, just before we jump into the SNL stuff, because I know people who would kill me if I didn't ask you about this. I just have to ask you how your experience was on Seinfeld, just because it is just such a classic show, and playing, you know, Elaine's roommate. I've actually, like, on reruns, seen those episodes like so many times, and I always laugh because I know you're from SNL, so I always just find it so funny. How was that experience?
Okay, it was amazing. I, once again, did an imitation of a friend who actually was this girl. Her name was Jennifer, but she got all the boys in high school and her nickname was Nipper. So my character, I did Nipper. And when I went for my audition, first of all, it was the first season and they didn't even know if they were going to get picked up. So I had done a play in LA called American Splendor that was about Harvey Picar. You know Harvey Picar. So Jerry Seinfeld was a fan and so was Larry David of Harvey Picar. So they'd come to my play. So they called me in for this part and I was like, Jerry. But so the funny thing is that, so, you know, I was Elaine's roommate and when I would do my scenes with Jerry, he wouldn't look at my head. He'd look to the right of me, like almost like someone who has a problem with their vision. They don't look at you. And I'm like, Jerry, are you not looking at me? He goes, I can't look at you because if I look at you, I'm going to laugh. So he would look like at the side of my head. But I loved being on Seinfeld. They work their rear ends off to make it perfect. The reason why it's so great is, number one, they're naturally talented, but 2, because they worked so hard at it. But the very interesting about my journey on it was that they didn't know they're going to get picked up the first season. By the time I did whatever was the last time I was on the show, they were, superstars. And also, I had married my husband by then, and they wanted my husband to be in one of the scenes, and he was too nervous. He wouldn't do it. To this day, he kicks himself. But I was supposed to do another one. I did 3 of them. I was supposed to do a 4th, and SNL wouldn't let me out. Oh, well.
Really? Oh, okay.
Oh, well.
Yeah. I mean, look, speaking of SNL, you told really just already an incredible story. So I'm so excited to hear some more, the answers to some more questions that we have.
Yes.
James, why don't I send it over to you? Do you have an SNL question for Siobhan?
Oh, do I have an SNL question? Of course. Well, let's start at the beginning, I guess. I mean, do you remember your experience being offered the show or the audition process, or
Yes.
Tell us about that?
So I did a one-woman show in LA, and they came and saw it. The Pam Thomas, who was their casting person, came and saw it, and she told Lorne, I didn't think he had demo reels or something. There was nothing like now, like kids can do TikTok or whatever they do. So I fly to New York, and there was 15 girls, and of course it was cutthroat. And in the audience is the cast, and so here you are thinking, oh my gosh, Dana Carvey and Phil Hartman, and I can't believe it, Lauren. So I had taken all these characters from this one woman show, and I would just do I don't even know, 10 seconds, then go, and then and then I would Katharine Hepburn. I was like, oh my, anyway, I did them, and then afterwards everybody went out, and we all went to the Paramount Hotel. That was so cool then. And I remember Chris Rock and Rob Schneider and Chris Farley, I think it's you, and I was like, oh my gosh. Well, there's no cell phones, and they were all telling me, look, I think it's you. And so I called as soon as I wasn't going to wake up my parents too early. I called at 6:00 in the morning, and my mother answered. She goes, oh, gal, Siobhan, your father's golfing. So I call the Casanova golf course, and I say, hi, of course, nobody. Hi, is this Jim? Jim, is my father there? Oh, Siobhan, he's out golfing. Then I got the call that I got it. So I call him. They go out, they get him off the golf course. Come in. He picks the phone. Siobhan! I go, hi, Dad. I go, guess what? I'm going to be on Saturday Night Live. Out of sight, Siobhan. Out of sight. That's dynamite. All right, I'm real proud of you. Hey, guys, my daughter's going to be on Saturday Night Live. He goes, all right, Siobhan, I got to go back and golf. Love you.
I love that. And so thankful that we get to see your wonderful Katharine Hepburn impression on Theater Stories, right?
Oh my God, right. I forgot about that. Theater Stories.
When
Dana Carvey did Mickey Rooney.
Yes.
Oh, he's the best of that. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Haynes?
Wow. I mean, first of all, I'm still dealing with that story right now. Standing around, hearing, Farley and Rock going, I think it's you. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. It's the coolest from anyone. It's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Farley, okay, so David Spade lived a couple blocks from me, and Chris Farley lived a couple blocks from me. And Chris and I both went to the same Catholic church, Holy Trinity. So we'd go every Sunday night together after having gone to the parties. You're so screwed up. The party wouldn't start till 1 in the morning. You didn't get out till 5 in the morning. Then I'd usually make Chris come with me to ring Peter's doorbell because I was so mature. And Peter had one of those doorbells that you could see who it was. And Chris would go, Peter, it's Chris Farley. Come on. Siobhan's a nice girl. You got to ask her out on a little date, Peter. And then sometimes they'd buzz us in, and Chris would be like, we're starving. And so, but anyway, we'd go to church, and I'd see Chris being like, leaning over, praying. But Chris was a devout, faithful, fabulous guy. When he passed, Bernadette, my daughter, was about 1, and I didn't have a babysitter, and I went to St. Malachi's Church, the Actors Church in New York. And you'd think, who's going to get up for his memorial? Someone famous. No, this shut-in got up, and he said, whatever his name was, Chris brought me soup and meals once a week. And this was a guy that was just really a saint,
Wow.
The greatest guy. And let me tell you something. Chris and I used to have this. We used to have the same where we go, because a lot of people are really funny, but they're not funny in person. So say if there was a host or something that wasn't funny in person, we'd go, not naturally. Not naturally.
So good.
It's one thing that I hear from everyone is that, obviously Chris Farley's, someone that people think of, as one of the greatest cast members. He's just so well loved, and but I hear from SNL alum that off stage he was even funnier, and he was just a beast.
He was well. Here's the thing: he had that Irish self-deprecating humor on. When the host would come in on Mondays, we'd all have to get in Lorne's office, which was tiny, and it would be like this giant group of people, and you're sort of trying to find like a couch to get on the arm of or something, and we'd have to each go around and, tell what you thought you could write about that week. And so some people really could make themselves sound really great. They'd be like, well, I read, that Nietzsche, and I thought that, and Chris would go, well, yeah. And he would do like, I'm not much of a reader per se, but I don't read a lot of books. And then if he said something or did something, he'd smash himself in the head and he'd go, oh, why did I do that? And he'd pull his hair. He was so funny.
That's
amazing. This is amazing. This is so good. Okay, so since you mentioned how late these parties go, I have to ask: do you have what's your best SNL after party story?
I'm trying to think my best SNL after story. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh.
There's got to be a few of them.
Well, I mean, I always love the dancing, and what I can't. Honestly, to tell you the truth. They were not as wild because the wilder group was before us. And when we were on, people were much more careful. So there was not like Dana wasn't wild. There weren't like, it was really who would go out after the parties were really me, Chris, David, and it really was kind of innocent. It was, beer, it wasn't like I tell you what, I never saw any drugs or anything like that ever.
Gotcha.
That was a little bit of a dull answer. I'm sorry.
No. That's okay. And it was not a dull answer. I didn't mean that. But you mentioned Lorne, being on the floor when you and Peter or your father were coming down there. So I have to ask you because Lorne is so integral to the show and his personality. Can you give us your most heartwarming interaction with Lorne Michaels?
Well, first of all, Lorne would take out the host every Tuesday, and then he would pick a few different people to go. And he really was genius about, look, the guy's a genius. He was run a show forever that's successful. It's like a machine that he really knows what he's doing, but he reinvents it. And, okay. So like when Seinfeld came, he's like, Siobhan, come out to dinner with us. And we go out to dinner. He's a classy guy. He knows what's funny. And he was all like, when he asked me to be in Baby Mama, this is what he's like. I did the role, it's not a huge role. I had a great time. The movie comes out. I get a beautiful picture in the mail, sterling silver with, Baby Mama. Thank you, Siobhan. You know what I mean? He really just knows how to do the right thing and a class act.
Do you have a terribly, a most nerve-wracking experience with Lorne?
Well, look, I came from a completely different background than most of the people because most people are stand-up comics. I'm an actress.
Right.
So, and a lot of people were really emotional. Like a lot of the girls would go and cry and be like, why didn't I get on? I was like, over my dead body, I'm going to cry that I'm not going to be on a scene. But there was Adam Sandler and Chris Rock wrote this sketch that didn't get on that was about a Fox TV comedy pilot. And so they asked me and Adam, when it was Chris, a couple of to think of their cheesiest character to be like, we were supposed to be actors that auditioned. So I was like, so we do the reading, right? And, everybody's around, everybody's really judgy. And it's like the whole network's there. And like Al Franken and people are like, really Harvard people. And so I was like, hi, my name's Susie. And, I'm like in the stupid scene. And I was like, and my character is Bert Lahr from the Wizard of Oz. They're like, and Adam's like, okay, Bert, could you please do your character? I'm like, if I were the king forever. So I do this full-blown completely unattractive for a girl to be doing, your face is distorted, the King of the Forest. And then Madonna was on, I think, like a week or two later. And there, in between the shows, you have like half an hour to get your notes. I don't even know what sketch it was, but Lorne was like, Siobhan, can you tune it down a little on that? I'm getting a little King of the Forest on that one.
That's great.
I'm going to kill you guys. The stupid sketch never even got on. And now I'm going to be like, all they can do is picture my face as like a distorted cartoon.
That is hilarious.
Oh, that's so funny. Siobhan, I have to ask you, when people talk about season 17 of SNL, I always get asked about this one moment. And I wonder if you'll know exactly where I'm going with this. But when Steve Martin hosted the show in season 17, the monologue, the not gonna phone it in tonight, is like one of the all-time greatest SNL moments. And you are a part of it. Can you give us like what you remember about that?
Well, first of all, I fancied myself as a musical theater actress until I found out I didn't sing high enough. Like I wanted to be a Broadway musical singer till I would go to auditions. I'd be like, yes, my ballad is going to be Send in the Clowns. And I'd be like, isn't it rich? Aren't we a pet? They'd be like, thank you. I was like, what the hell? One time I did a tap dance time step for 42nd Street for Summer Stock Theater in New Hampshire. And the director's like, and there's like 15 people tap dancing. And I was tap dancing in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, I'm really, really good. And look at my red ponytail flying. And the guy goes, cut. He goes, can I talk to you for a second? And as I'm walking to him, I'm thinking to myself, he clearly can see that I am not course material. He's going to ask me to be the lead of this. And so he says, what's your name? And I said, Siobhan. And he said, you can go home. And I was like, what the F? I'm done with musical theater. None of that. So in that sketch with Steve Martin, I can still remember, not gonna phone it in tonight. And Chris Farley and I thought it was so funny that we were like jazz hands. And it was like, that was all we would like march around like, like do like the best chorus ever. It was a riot. And Steve Martin, talk about a class act and lovely, lovely guy. I loved him.
Yes. Honestly, just one of the coolest moments in the history of the show. And every single time there's a musical monologue, people will always compare it to that particular monologue. So the fact that you were a part of that is really just like wonderful to have seen. I did want to ask you though, one of the topics that we had during this last season when we were covering season 46 of SNL was how large the cast was. That was something that was, it was constantly being brought up as, it just really affects the airtime of certain players on the cast. So as someone who was like on a season with a very large cast, how do you feel about seeing this large cast that's on now? Because there was much smaller casts in between them.
Okay. Well, first of all, the hilarious thing is that I always got on, even if I was just what Chris Rock used to call judgy wudgy. I was always the judge, which is pathetic in itself. And so I remember like David Spade being like, oh my God, I have not been on in 3 shows. You're always on. And I was like, but I'm doing nothing. So, and in those days, it was acceptable that the girls got one sketch. So we're like, okay, so we have the guys sketch, then we have the girls sketch, and no one complained. It was just the way it was. So, listen, I felt so lucky, and I feel large cast. Now, here's the question: is you're saying the cast is really large now? I don't even know because I don't even watch it because I.
Oh, okay, yeah, I wasn't sure.
I'm too obsessed with the movie.
Okay, for sure. And that's I should have asked you that. I'm sorry about that. But there are 20 cast members now, which is the largest cast in the history of the show. And I just like, people were like, has there ever been this large of a cast? And I was like, well, actually, in the like late teens of the show, there actually were some very large casts, which created problems for certain people to get airtime. Yeah,
look, it's rough, but it's lucky. It's lonely at the top. Too bad. Tough apples. You get to be on Saturday Night Live. You know what I mean? You this is like the chance of a lifetime. So it's so darn lucky. And whether I was on a little, what does Shakespeare say? There are no small parts, only small actors. You're so lucky to just be a part of it. That big, whether you're on for 1 minute. Oh, I'll tell you a funny thing about it though. So remember I was telling you that so you could bring people to your dressing room. So I had done one episode of this TV show called Babes that my friend David Goodman, who's now the head of the Writers Guild, we're still really good friends. He was a writer on. He got me on the show. I became friends with this guy Michael. I haven't seen him in 100 years. Anyway, He came to New York. He's like, hey, Siobhan, I'm in New York. Could I come to your, I go, well, I gave away my tickets, but you can come to my dressing room. I'm like, everybody else does. He comes, he brings like a random friend who gets drunk and sneaks on the stage during the bows.
Really? Which episode is this?
Well, I can't remember, but I was so mad. I was like, I am new. You cannot be sneaking. So I didn't even know it till my sister was like, hey, Siobhan, who was that guy with like the blonde curly hair that was cute behind you? So anyway, I was so mad at this guy that the next day he sent me a fruit basket with a teddy bear. That was his story note. I was like, this isn't cutting it. You can't be coming to my dressing room and then having your dumb friend run on stage. But now I think it's really funny. But at the time I was like ready to kill him.
Yeah, we're gonna have to tell our friends at SNL Archives to give him the name so they can put him up on the stage. It's so funny.
But to be fair, it sounds like everyone that you invite really takes advantage of the opportunity.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing. There were so many people. It was like, look, you might as well just jump on stage because there's about 100 people up there.
Right.
Wait, the other really fun thing is my kids. I'm like really, really music nerd lady. Like I like the Bee Gees and disco music. I love to. I'm a very good dancer. I like to dance, like that kind of dance. But my kids are like, Mom, what was it like when you were on with Kurt Cobain? What was it like when you were on with? And I was like, okay, refresh me on who that one was. And they're like, what? So I was like, I knew MC Hammer.
Right. Well, he hosted while you were there, which is a crazy episode.
Yeah. Yep. So we had some really unbelievable musical that my kids just freak out about now.
Yeah, for sure. James, over to you.
Well, yeah, and actually related to all of that, you said, I have a question, but before I have to go here, you mentioned Madonna earlier, and I don't know if you'll remember this or be able to say for sure, but that episode where she was a cameo with it was Roseanne and Tom Arnold hosting. There's this surprise cameo with Barbara Streisand. And one of the things that people just are always trying to, ascertain is, Mike Myers and everybody, how much was that a surprise, or was that really, kind of planned all along? And you might not recall,
can't remember.
but
I can't remember, to tell you the truth, but I remember she was on.
Right.
So maybe it was like a little bit of a planned surprise.
Yeah. No, and that's for sure fair.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, fast forward several years, the 40th, you were there. I remember. See you there, and with everybody hugging, there with speaking of good nights. What was being there for the 40th anniversary like?
Okay, first of all, it was hilarious because I take turns with my kids. Whoever got to do the last special thing doesn't get to the next thing. So it was my son's turn. He was a junior in high school, and he had a tuxedo on. I'll never forget. We came out of the Penn Station, and this bum goes, "You look like Tom Cruise." Anyway, so we go. We're all dressed up. We go, and I said, I have no shame. I'm gonna get a picture of my son with every single celebrity that he wants to, and he was game. So I never know who anyone is, right? I do not know, and I'm not joking. So long and the short of it is, I am talking to Rihanna, but I don't know that. And she's like, I can't believe you're in Men in Black. I love that part. And I'm like, you are so nice. Thank you so much. Wait, I want you to meet my son. Peter, come here. She goes, I can't believe your mother was in Men in Black. I love that movie. And I said, what's your name? And she says, Rihanna. I said, Peter, this is Rihanna. Peter's like, Mom, I know. It's better. Okay. So I have to tell this right. I'm actually not very good at telling stories. I always tell a little bit wrong. So,
disagree.
You're great at them.
This is so insane. So Peter was getting his picture taken with everybody under the sun, Jim Carrey and Zach Galifianakis, and on and on and on. Okay, so this is sad. A girl in our town had cancer, and my son had the whole football team sign a jersey for her. He brought it to her, and Kim Kardashian, her final wish before she died, make a wish, was that Kim Kardashian and her husband would talk to her on the phone, the FaceTime or something. So they did. So I am now getting cocky in my saying hello to everybody for my son. And I get a little bit out of his range. And I go over to what I think is Kim Kardashian. But I say to this woman, I just want to say to you that you and your husband did such a nice thing for so-and-so. And that, she passed. And what you did was unbelievable. And she kind of looks at me like, what in God's name are you talking about? Oh, no. And then I feel my son next to me. He goes, Mom. And I go, shut up. And he goes, Mom. And I go, I'm telling her how nice it was what they did for the Make-A-Wish. And, big stars don't have to do that. And she says, I don't think we did that. And I said, no, wait a minute. Aren't you Kim Kardashian? And she says, no, I'm Beyonce. Oh, wait a minute. Oh my gosh, you're really famous, aren't you? And I go, now this is terrible, but now is your one of who's who? I go,
oh my golly.
Because they have the different names.
Yeah.
But my son was like, oh my God. But she loved it because I think I'm probably the only person in the whole world who didn't know who Beyonce was.
Maybe.
That's the greatest mom story I've ever heard.
Lovely. She was lovely.
Oh,
that's
so
unbelievable.
Nice.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's an amazing mom story, an amazing story about the 40th anniversary, which is just an incredible evening. So thanks for sharing that.
I also made my son leave early because he had school right when the Blues Brothers got it. He's like, Mom. I'm like, you can't sleep past 11 tomorrow. You have to make it for the football game. Can you imagine what an idiot I was? So we left. Like we didn't leave. Like we left at 2 a.m, but we didn't stay till 5 like everybody else.
Right. But you were at the after party with where Prince
played.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Haynes, did you have some other SNL stuff you want to ask Siobhan?
SNL stuff. Well, I could go on forever with SNL questions. Actually. I know that the first sketch you appeared in was during the first episode of season 17, and it was the Superfan sketch featuring Michael Jordan. And yes, and I know that you shared a story with our very own Andy Hogland about how you had given Michael Jordan a note before he went on stage saying, "Don't F this up, Siobhan." And that's hilarious.
So Michael Jordan and I, it was his first sketch. It was my first sketch, first show of my first season. And so he's really nervous and he's such a great guy, great personality. And so he and I were off stage a lot together because we had to enter, just a couple seconds apart from each other. And so he's like, oh my God, he's like kind of jittery. He's like not an actor at all. And I remember we were talking, I remember he was like, oh my God, my wife spent $85,000 today, Bergdorf Goodman. And he goes like, oh my God. So it gets to be nighttime and it's fine during the day. And then you do your rehearsal. Then you've got 20 minutes and I could tell he's like really nervous. And I say, Michael, listen, most of these people are stand-up comics, but I am an actress and I can tell you one hint to get you through this and it's going to work. So you have to listen to me. And he's like, 90 feet tall. And he's like, okay. And I go, but are you going to listen? He goes, yes, I'm desperate. I go, okay. So I'm going to write down on a piece of paper what you have to do, but you must not look at it till the split second before you go on stage. Do you promise? Yes. So I write on a piece of paper, don't F up, but I write the word out. Don't F-U-C-K up. And so I'm just a stupid waitress in the sketch. I go on. Of course, I glance to look as he reads it. And he's like coming on stage laughing, like you see him smirking. Cut to, I'm from Syracuse. The Syracuse Dome, Michael's manager, there's a school named after him up in Falk is his name in Syracuse, the sports management school of Falk. Anyway, so there was a big, huge fundraiser for arthritis many years after, maybe 8 years after. Michael, all he has to do is take some shots in the court. My brother-in-law's mom had arthritis, so he goes, Michael Jordan. Michael ignores him. He yells it again, ignores him. So my brother-in-law goes, Siobhan Fallon. He turns. He goes, how do you know Siobhan? And he tells him, and he says, let me tell you a story about what she did to me. So he tells him, my brother-in-law's a lawyer. He goes to court that Monday to one of the toughest judges in Syracuse. And the guy says, before we started like Arthur Bigsby to approach the bench, the judge says to him, how did you get Michael Jordan to come over to you? And what story did you tell him that got him laughing? So that was what happened.
Yeah,
Wow.
you're the only person who could ever defend MJ. That's crazy.
That's pretty good. That's
So funny.
The reason I brought it up is because I think it's the funniest story I've heard of a cast member giving advice to a host. So I would love to know what is so incredibly memorable advice that you got from someone at SNL.
Let me think about this. Well, one thing that I couldn't do, that I could not take. Well, no one ever advised me, but I couldn't stand looking at cue cards because I had to have everything memorized. Unlike other people could read them, I couldn't take that. But I remember Dana Carvey said, no, Chris Rock. They both were so great. But Chris Rock one time said, don't get rattled by too many notes. You're funny. Don't let them rattle you. Don't let them, because everybody's got something to say. There's so many writers, producers, like, don't lose your funny. Don't lose your funny. You're funny. Stick with your funny. I love Chris. He's the greatest guy.
Yeah, I can hear him saying that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the advice is, don't worry too much about the advice.
The thing is young actors too, and it being funny, I'm kind of like, you're like a kid. You just want to be patted on the back and told the more someone tells you funny, the funnier you're going to be. But if someone goes, hey, when you did that moment, that didn't work. And then you starts to chip away and knock at you, so that can get a little dangerous. That's what's hard about, and that might be hard for young people with a big cast, when you're not used a couple times, then you're like, oh, this is my one shot. I gotta make this. And then if you overdo it, it's not very funny.
Sure. Yeah, well, and speaking of the big cast, to kind of circle back, because you started with the audition process, and I think you said the 15 girls. Was wondering, obviously, as those great friends of yours did indicate, yes, you did get the part. Was there just curious, was there anyone else in that pack? Was it just you out of the 15, or was there anyone else that was?
Ellen Cleghorn.
Ellen, yes.
Yeah. So, and then later, no, wait a minute, Melanie Hutzel too. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, and just kind of following up here for those of you that are listening and maybe not completely tracking this particular season, it's crazy. There were 10 featured players in addition to you, Siobhan. Beth Cahill, Ellen Cleghorn, Al Franken, Melanie Hutzel, Tim Meadows, Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider, Robert Smigel, David Spade, all featured players. And it's just crazy to think. I mean, it's just, again, a stacked cast all around.
Yeah, it was crazy. And competitive. Oh my gosh. When you'd come up with your idea, and I wasn't really a writer at the time. I was like, huh? When are you supposed to write? What the hell? So that part of it, that was stressful, I thought,
Well, and just maybe to circle back again to the Delta girls, that you and Beth and Melanie, just, oh my God, together.
That was so fun because we were the three young, so it wasn't like we felt comfortable together, rehearsing together, because we were all new and we felt comfortable doing it. So that's when you felt like, oh, okay, we have something that's good,
Yeah, it was honestly just a very memorable sketch that I really, really enjoyed from that particular season. You spoke about the three girls and you were all together. And I do often think about, I don't know if you mentioned you're not watching now, but I'm sure you've heard about, the Betty White episode of SNL, which was in, or maybe you haven't, which was in season 35 of the show. And they ended up bringing back a lot of female cast members from, that was a little bit further, ahead of you guys in terms of the years. Molly Shannon was there, and different Anna Gasteyer was brought back, and Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, and all those people. So there's a lot of, obviously, we look back, there's a lot of great female cast members in the history of the show. And I guess this is a little bit of a question and also a statement, Siobhan, but I really feel that, you should be recognized as one of the great female cast members in the history of the show. And I know that you were only on for one season, but you are just incredibly talented, and I've really enjoyed you in everything you're in. And for some of our younger listeners who haven't gone back and seen your season, you are definitely, as far as I'm concerned, right up there with all the great women in the history of the show.
I really, really appreciate that. I really do. I can't thank you enough for saying that. And thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. So before we wrap up tonight, I know Haynes, you had an acting question. I think you just wanted to get in before we wrap. So go ahead. Yeah,
I did. I'm going to do my best, James Lipton here, and so so I did. Want to ask you kind of we know that obviously you're much more than just a comic actor. So, I know you're a longstanding member of the Atlantic Theater Company, which was founded by David Mamet and William H. Macy, kind of inspired by Lee Strasberg's group theater. And I was hoping you could talk about your personal acting philosophies, maybe particularly on the concepts of character and self and how they're influenced, by that Strasberg method versus Meisner or Adler technique.
Well, it's funny. Got my master's degree in acting from Catholic U, but I also studied Meisner. And for me, the Meisner technique is by far the most simple and easiest, which is simply put for people that aren't actors, it's living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. So, it's just really listening and answering and living truthfully. So that's the method I find to be the best. And of course, I like to lay on an accent and a limp too.
It doesn't hurt.
Oh, that's amazing.
And a nice wig.
For sure. Siobhan, I cannot thank you enough for joining us and talking about your new film. It was just so fun to just casually talk to you and ask you questions about everything about your life and SNL. Thank you so much.
Listen, thanks so much for having me. And if the movie is not in your town for some reason, then definitely stream it. It's going to be on Apple, iTunes, and all those video platforms that I wouldn't have a clue how to do. But please watch Rushed. It's fantastic. Jake Weary's fantastic. Robert Patrick's unbelievable. The director's fantastic. Vivica Messiah. Perry Gilpin from Frasier's in it. There's some new young people. Justin Linville, who's in Paul Feig's new show, and a lot of new talent. Lily Rosenthal, Ben Rosenthal. Yeah, it's really, really my kids, Peter and Sinead Hogan. It's pretty fantastic. So you guys, thanks a million. Anytime you want me on, I'll come and talk.
Yeah, I hope you'll join us again. I so appreciate it. And Rush will be released, and to just make sure I got this right, Rush will be released August 27th, later this month, in theaters and on demand as well, correct?
Absolutely. Check the trailer out, and once you check it out, it's a thriller. You'll come and see it.
Perfect. So we'll just wrap the podcast, if that's okay, Siobhan, just for a couple minutes. James, thank you for joining us and participating in the interview. Where can people reach out to you?
Well, I'm on the normal places. I always get confused at this part. You know that about me, John. It's that thing where I'm on the Facebook, I'm on the Instagram, I'm on the Twitter. But really, if you want to strike up and I'm happy to have a conversation with you. But Andrew and John both are the more hipper guys. So I guess I'll just end with saying this: if this was the end of Forrest Gump, at the end of Forrest Gump, I'd just say. To Siobhan, and now we ain't strangers anymore.
That's right, we ain't strangers anymore. And I'm Dorothy Harris, and you're James Stevens.
Oh, wow, that's so incredible. We're gonna clip that out for you. Yeah. Haynes, where can people reach out to you? Thanks for joining us.
You can always find me on Twitter at SNL has a cast. I love the cast of SNL, so that that's the reason that's my Twitter handle. I'm also on Instagram at Candrew Attitude. It's been a long time since someone's called me hip, so I appreciate that, James. And it's just been the proudest moment of my life, getting involved in this interview with you, Siobhan. So thank you so much.
Listen, Andrew, you're a class act. I really appreciate it, and honestly, we ain't strangers anymore, Andrew, are we? And this is the best of the school.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
So basic. Siobhan, for all of the listeners who want to find you, are you on social media anywhere where people can find you?
Okay, here's the hilarious part. I am on social media, but my son sometimes has to do everything, and he'll be like, "Mom, what did you?" So the movie is on Instagram at Rushed Movie, and I also have Instagram, Siobhan Fallon Hogan, and there's a Facebook for the movie Rushed Movie, and it's on IMDb, and it's on all kinds of trailers on YouTube. Rushed Movie 2021.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And for anyone who wants to reach out to me, I'm so excited about all the SNL coverage we are doing as we head towards season 47. You can reach out to me at Jon Schneider 24, Twitter, Instagram. I'm on Facebook too. You feel free to reach out to me there, or to see everything we are doing as a whole on the podcast at SNL Stats, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok as well, getting in with all the young people. So it's really, really fun to create all this content for all the listeners. Let us know what you think. We always love to hear from you. You can subscribe to us on YouTube or any podcatcher and follow us on any social media. Last week, we were covering Ted Lasso. That is Jason Sudeikis' new show on Apple TV. It is a wonderful show. We spoke about episodes 1 and 2, so that is available in your feeds now. And we are going to be talking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine this month. That is the final season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We will be live about 15 minutes after those episodes air on Thursday evenings for the next few weeks. So feel free to join us on the SNL Stats YouTube channel. We will be there live talking about those episodes. So for James, Andrew, and Siobhan, I really appreciate all the listeners sticking with us and listening to this interview. Everyone go check out Rushed. It is going to be an incredible movie, and I'm so excited to see it. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a great one.
But we're here for the numbers as well. So let's get statistical, so unpredictable here on SNL Stats.